Before you spend another dollar on marketing, ask yourself this. Do you actually know how your customers decide to buy? Because marketing is a promise, and your brand is defined by whether that promise gets kept or broken. In this podcast today of Profit with a Plan, we're going to be looking at the buyer's mindset and the moment they decide to make the purchase. Why friction often shows up when someone is ready to say yes, and what changes when you stop guessing and start listening. We're also going to be unpacking why many companies avoid customer interviews, and even though revenue only comes from customers who buy. Today's topic often shows up in the work of Kristin Zhivago, and it is challenging. It challenges how most businesses think about marketing, branding, and growth. So join us on Profit with a Plan today. Hey, entrepreneurs, are you working too hard for too little profit? Well, welcome to Profit with a Plan podcast, where we help you scale smarter, increase profitability, and build a business that's worth more, whether you keep it or sell it. I'm Marcia Riner, business growth strategist and profit booster behind Infinite Profit. I've helped countless entrepreneurs to turn their businesses into highly profitable and sale-ready assets, so they enjoy more income now and a bigger payday later. So join me for practical strategies, expert insights, and proven steps that make your business more profitable, more valuable, and built to last. By the way, today's episode is sponsored by Infinite Profit, where we don't just talk profit, we deliver it. But before we dive in, I've got something special for you. If you're tired of flat revenue and marketing that doesn't pay off, then the new Profit Booster Growth Map might be for you. In just a few minutes, you'll learn exactly how to bring in more qualified clients and plug those profit leaks that are eating away at your cash. You can get it for free at profitbooster.biz and start turning missed revenue into real money. All right, let's jump into today's episode. My guest today is Kristin Zhivago. Kristin is the CEO of Zhivago Partners and is a leading authority on how customers actually buy and not how customers wish they did. Her work centers on identifying what she calls sales stoppers and the moments of friction that slow or stop buyers once they're already interested. She has interviewed thousands of customers across hundreds of companies, helping business owners uncover why people buy, how they decide, and where revenue gets lost in the process. She's also the author of The Roadmap to Revenue, which challenges businesses to align marketing, sales, and delivery around customers' buying mindset. So this practical conversation is about promise perception and what really drives revenue when you stop guessing and start listening. Welcome, Kristin. I'm glad you're on the call. And, now that my mouth seems to be working, we'll make this one better.
Glad to be here. Thanks.
Excellent, excellent. So how in the world did you kind of come up with this idea that it's better to talk with the customer and get this kind of information? I mean, some people would think, duh, but then nobody does it.
Yeah, that's the paradox. It's sort of like I used to give speeches all over the world talking about this, and when I stood up in front of them, I now do podcasts. It's easier. But anyway, I would always ask them, how do you lose weight? What are the two things you have to do? Everybody had the answer. You eat less and exercise more. And then I would say, how many of you are doing it? And no hands would go up, or maybe one or two. It's the same thing. We know that revenue comes from customers. It just never occurs to people to ask customers, particularly people who have already bought from you, why they bought and how they bought, and ask certain open-ended questions, which I've worked out in, as you said, literally thousands of customer interviews. I spell them out in chapter 3 of my book. Make it super easy for you to do this and teach you how to get them on the phone, or these days it's Zoom audio. You don't want to do video because they get uncomfortable. And audio allows them to just call in and be anywhere and answer your questions. So there are techniques that work, and you only have to interview 5 to 7 people of a given type, and you'll start seeing trends. I mean,
Mm.
absolute people will even use the same exact phrase, although they've never spoken to each other, to describe things like the promise you're making, the promise they wish you would make, how well you're keeping the promise, or have you broken it. One of the basic principles of this whole method is that branding is your marketing making promises on behalf of the company. That's branding.
Oh, I like that.
Your brand is how well you keep those promises or break them. That's what people say about you when you're not in the room. So this whole thing, it seems like a soft concept, but when you think about it, it is about making promises and it is about keeping them.
Wow, that is really powerful stuff because, we all know things happen. Something, the delivery got missed. We opened a can of worms that we didn't realize when we got into doing the service or what have you. So things happen, but how you handle those kind of moves is really where your promise is fulfilled, right? Because those
Absolutely.
things are going to go. If you ghost them or say, "Oh, it's now instead of, $100, it's now $150 to solve that problem," then that's where that promise gets lost, right?
Yep, absolutely.
This is
Yeah.
this is really valuable though to think about your business in that manner. And so how does one I mean, I'm thinking to myself how I would build that out, but I would love to hear how you align that brand in a way that is attractive to your ideal customer.
Well, again, customers will tell you. That's the beauty of this. You don't have to use AI and build personas and all
And
that
create.
stuff because personas are like stalking somebody. So if you were stalked for 2 weeks by someone, who was sitting in a car across the street or something, and they knew that you went to the store every Friday afternoon and you typically bought these things, well, okay, that's interesting. But it doesn't say what they had in their mind when they set out to buy your specific product.
Ah.
What was their mindset when they set out to buy? And I've been talking about this for some time now. I've written a guide on it. We can talk about it at the end. But the mindset of the buyer consists of three things: their desires, their concerns, and their questions. These
Hmm.
are hoops that you have to jump through.
But that
So
makes it sound so easy.
I've been trying to easify marketing for decades because people need to understand how simple this is. This is about human beings appealing to each other. I've just written a blog about something I'm calling connectionism. I think
Oh.
capitalism and communism, which are two opposing ends of the spectrum, everybody's been focused on those for decades. I think what we now have is a completely new economy, and I'm calling it connectionism. I'm
Hmm.
saying there are fake, false connections. There are almost but not quite connections where you promise but you don't deliver, or you somehow disappoint the customer, or they know that you don't really understand them, and so they just disappear. And then there's the connections that actually work and
Hmm.
they're relevant. They give the customer what they want. And this applies to personal life too. I mean, when
Hmm.
you get married, you make promises. You stand there in front of the minister or whatever and you say, I do. I promise this, this, and this. And if you continue to keep those promises, you'll have a happy marriage. I know I was married for 48 years before I lost my
Oh.
husband. So this is just, you can stay in love forever if you keep the promises that other person wanted you to keep at the beginning and continues. So this whole commercial side of it is building a relevant connection with the customer. And it's not about relationship marketing. Nobody wants the car dealer showing up for dinner, okay? It's unannounced. You don't shop to make friends. You shop because you have a need and you want to go somewhere, and the first thing you see when you go to the website or whatever is that they get the need. Describe it in your own words. They know what you desire.
Hmm.
And then you immediately address their concerns because there's no such thing as a virgin buyer. And people have tried and been disappointed. And so they're saying, well, that's nice. That's a nice promise, but are you going to do this or that? Once you've jumped through those two hoops, now they will have they're still with you and they want you to answer very specific questions. How big is it? Will it integrate with this? Does it match that? You know,
Hmm.
how good am I going to look in this? Or whatever the
Well,
questions
those
are.
are kind of buying signals as well. When they start asking those questions, you know that they've already jumped through those first two hoops, and this person has really narrowed you down with other,
It's a very
to
good observation. That is
yeah,
correct. Yeah.
that's great. Okay. So, and you can get all this from asking questions to your existing
Yeah.
buyers.
Yeah. I mean, if somebody called you and it was a product that you just purchased or you've been using for a while, they don't have to prepare for this conversation. You do set up an appointment. You want to be
Sure.
courteous and not just call them out of the blue. And again, I describe all of this. I give away all my secrets in the book because I want everyone to do this. Um, they will be prepared. I mean, if somebody said to you, "Why did you buy that car? How was the experience? What else did you look at? What were you most concerned about?" You would have answers to those questions.
Yeah.
And you're happy to tell them that what's interesting is the people who've already bought from you want you to be successful so that you're around when they have a problem, so they can come back and buy more of these if it's a certain clothing brand or whatever, and they like it, and so they want more of it. They want you to stay in business. So they're actually happy to answer these questions.
I love it. I love it because, I know that for a while their surveys were really,
Mm.
popular, but I never found that they actually gave me the information I wanted, right? I felt like I
Right.
was leading the witness a little bit to
Mm.
get them to answer the question the way I wanted them to, which tricks the data that I'm really needing to see on the other side. And then the percentage of people that did it, it was less than 1%.
Mm.
Super,
People don't
super
have time
tiny.
for that. They're bored by it.
It's
And
bored. Yeah.
a survey is your assumptions put in question form.
I love it.
You're
I
trying to
love it.
get confirmation of the validity of your assumptions. And that's just boring. That's so boring. When you
It is.
ask open-ended questions and you treat them like a human being, and by the way, AI cannot do this, not yet.
I was
Because
just going to ask that one.
for example, if a bot called someone and said, um, how was this experience? And the person would say, it was okay. Now, I've interviewed thousands of people. I'm not going to let that rest. I'm going to come in and say, uh, wait a minute, there was some doubt in there. Tell me more about this. And then they trust me because I heard them.
Mm,
They gave me a clue. They said, I'm not really thinking this is okay, but I need permission. I need to know you're actually listening. And when you pass that test, then they just start talking and talking. The bot would have said in the report, they said it was okay.
mm.
They
No,
wouldn't
you're
have even
right.
pursued it.
You're right.
Now, I'm sure that someday bots will be able to identify inflections and things like that. But I also think that human beings would much rather talk to another human being than to a bot. And I have
Of
nothing
course.
against AI. I'm all over it. We immersed ourselves in it the last year or two. But
But there's places for it. There's time and place, and this is the right use case for that. Whereas you're asking for valuable, incredibly valuable information from an
yeah,
existing customer to share their viewpoints. That is 1,000% an important human touch point that I
yeah.
think
And
you need to
also,
make.
people forget that they're unique.
Right.
Even in an industry that has a bunch of competitors, your competitor is not you. They don't make
Right.
decisions the same way you do. They don't have the same type of people. They treat their product and their service differently. Every company is a unique entity, and the reason that people buy from that company is very different from the reason they would buy from another company.
Exactly.
So this is why you have to do this for yourself and not depend on personas or anything. Now, I'll make one point. If you are an entrepreneur, there's two things that come up here. One is you need to hire someone to do these interviews, and of course I
That
can
was
do
the
them.
question I was just going
Yeah.
to ask. If you're a smaller company and the customer is quote buying from you,
Yeah.
do you need to be the person doing that interview?
No, not you. You need to
Great
hire
point.
someone because people are too polite, believe it or not. I mean, even for myself, with my own company, I have someone on my team do the interviewing. And my clients say things to me that, they might say the same thing, but they would say it a little more strongly if I'm not in the room. Okay. If I have a
Exactly.
weakness or something, or there's something they
Well, they
wish I
don't
would
want to
do.
hurt your feelings. And if you're
Exactly.
there writing down the answer, they're
Yeah.
going, oh, I better be nice to her rather
Yeah.
than,
Yeah.
wow,
Exactly.
she was a handful, but
Yeah.
she got the job done, right?
Or
Or
whatever
something
they're
that
going
would
to say.
be,
Yeah.
well, I'm just saying as an example though, right? They
Yeah.
would accept that with the third party because you can always like kind of let that guard down and have that conversation more frankly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can't
Yeah, I
remember what
like
the
that.
second thing I was going to say, but anyway, it'll come back to me as we're
Oh,
talking.
I'm sorry.
But
That's the
that was
challenge of
one
a
thing.
conversation, right?
Yeah,
Instead of a
that's okay.
So I have a question for you. How long do these interviews often take? So if you're planning and prepping the other person, hey,
30
it's going to be
minutes.
a 5 minute,
30 minutes.
30 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they'll go for that. I mean, 20 minutes is the psychological number that people use when they're trying to keep you around, like if you're at a restaurant and how long is the wait and they say 20 minutes. They figure you'll be patient for that. But that's not what's going on here. I used to spend an hour with people,
Really?
but they've gotten better at getting to the point faster in the last 10 or 15 years. It's been interesting to see. They're more blunt than they used
Mm.
to be, and they don't talk quite as much. Um, they try to say things succinctly, and that's a good thing.
Oh,
Um,
thank goodness, right?
yeah,
I don't know, as a customer, I don't know that I have an hour to spend, right? But a half hour, right? You know, if I can make an impact and this was worth my time,
yeah,
not that you're bribing me, but worth to the company, you know, that I felt, you know, that I enjoyed the experience, or maybe I didn't enjoy the experience enough to take that time to
yeah.
talk to somebody about it.
Now, one other trick is, and again, I spell all this out in the book, but you do have to tell them you're recording. And
Mm,
what I say to them is, I have to record this because I want to catch every word and I can't type as fast as you talk.
exactly.
But, but I'm going to anonymize the report. And I do that by taking a whole conversation and splitting it up into the answers to each question. So here's the question, and then in the report, I do a conversation transcription report. Every single person speaking on that topic is in their own little block.
Oh,
And
nice.
I further anonymize a little bit. I mean, just enough to make sure that nobody in the company, we do a lot of B2B work, business to business. And sometimes somebody will say, oh, yeah, that's Bob. He always says that. Well, in fact, Bob is doing a better job of encapsulating and summarizing the issue than a lot of other people, number one. And number two, Bob is usually right. It's just that everybody gets tired of him talking about it. But then if you see that seven people said the exact same thing, now you've got a bankable trend.
Right. It's not just Bob. Maybe it's
Right,
us.
right, right. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
this is valuable. This is really valuable insights. I've taught 7 years in the podcast. I've spoken to a few companies that do data research and this kind of stuff, and it always seemed to be like this gigantic, expensive project, you
Yeah,
know, to go get this third party in to interview and ask the questions, and then you get this data back, and you're like, well, you know, it's kind of like I often build plans for customers and they get it back and they go, "Oh, that's great," and then put it in the drawer.
Mm,
Right? They don't
exactly.
use any of it, which is sad. But yeah, I think that this is information that really can help your company move in the right direction and make better service, make a better product, make a better delivery of your product and service, get your customers happier, bring your customers back for more. And you know, that one question that nobody ever asks is, can you refer us? I mean, it seems like this is gonna, and I'm sure
Yeah,
there's a
you can do
dozen
that.
other great reasons why this is so valuable.
You have to wait until you've done.
Hey, quick pause here. If you've ever wondered what your next smartest move should be to grow your business, well, I've built something for you. It's called the Profit Booster Growth Map. It takes only about 2 minutes, it's totally free, and it shows you exactly where you're leaving money on the table and what to fix first. Go grab it for free at profitbooster.biz/growth map. Then come right back to the episode.
They don't want to feel like you're using them outside of the scope of what you say. And in the email, you don't say, we're trying to figure out the buying process. You say, we're trying to figure out how we should improve.
Yes.
So, and they'll definitely want to help with that. Um, but you can't, and one of the reasons you can't have a salesperson do this is it's going to be almost impossible for them not to react. If the person says, well, I wish you guys would do this, and the salesperson would be like, well, we already have, and we've been announcing it, and how come you didn't know about it? That's not good. Okay. You can't sell in this conversation. They'll immediately put up their wall and they'll be playing poker. Buyers never tell you what they're thinking when they're buying from you or negotiating with a salesperson. They never do. So you're not playing poker here. You're getting information after. I know what the other thing was. If you are an entrepreneur and you don't have any customers yet,
Oh,
how do you deal with that? And the
yeah,
answer is you find people who would be, you ask around and you try to find people who might be a good customer for what you're going to do. And you start there. And you still do the same thing. You ask the same questions. And in the case here, if they haven't had experience with your company, you would say, well, what other experiences have you had with similar companies? How were you disappointed? How were you pleased? Why did you hire them? That helps, okay? But
sure.
it isn't until you get customers that you're going to get the real value out of this because then they've done business with your company and they'll have a lot to tell you about that specific experience. But again, it only takes 5 to 7 people of a given type. So once you have 7 customers, you can go back and do this research and get much closer.
Love it.
I was also going to talk about one other thing, which is that
Sure.
you asked how I got into this. I had an ad agency in Silicon Valley. I've been in tech for decades, and um, I would meet with the people that up front, the beginning meetings, and I would say, "What do you think is important to your customers?" And they'd give me a list, 5, 10 items, whatever. They were most proud of the thing that was the hardest for them to build. So then I would go and interview the customers, and the list was always different, always, which told me that they were wasting, I don't know, 90% of their budget on promises that nobody cared about.
Mm.
This is really sad. And I think this is going on all over the world because people are too reluctant to interview their customers. They're worried they're going to find something that they can't fix. I have never had that be a problem. I've
You know,
usually found that the message is off, but the product is okay or the service is okay.
and I bet that that's happened more frequently than not, that the business owner thinks that this is why they bought from them, when in fact it was something completely different, as you just shared.
Yeah, and the thing they worked so hard to develop, you'd say, well, what about this part? Because, you'd ask the customer, you say, well, okay, I hear all of your answers, but what about this part? And my best case study was when basically the customers all said, well, everybody does that. Now, the programmers were super excited about how elegantly they did it, but it was completely lost on the customer because they just assumed it was like a baseline industry promise.
Mm,
Everybody's doing that. Doesn't make any difference to me. It was some other aspect that the CEO of the company didn't even realize was important to them.
wow.
And we ended up renaming the company, and he later sold it to Microsoft for a lot of money.
Wow.
Very successful once we got that message right.
Dialed in. I love it. So, question for you. When you're interviewing these people, right? I was going to ask, and you kind of answered it. But I'd love it in more of a concise, clear manner. You wouldn't interview these people like as an onboarding kind of question. Hey, you just bought our product. Tell us why you bought it. You kind of wait a little while, right?
Mm, yeah,
What's a good
they need to
time
have.
frame to wait?
It depends completely on the product or service. Now, I've identified years ago, I figured out the buying journey was different based on the amount of scrutiny that the customer applied to the purchase.
Oh,
So there are four types of products and services in the world based on that, based on the amount of scrutiny that they applied. There's light scrutiny, which is checkout counter, impulse purchase, doesn't cost much, nobody else is involved, no contracts.
no heavy decision
No
made,
heavy
right? Ah,
decision. You just see it, buy it, and that's it. Okay. The way you market that is going to be completely different, or I should say, the way they buy it is completely different than they would buy a heavier scrutiny. So the next category is medium scrutiny. And in the consumer world, that's like clothing, things that are ten to a hundred
does this
dollars.
make me look fat?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The big question. Um, and there is someone involved, but sort of on the side, like, is my boyfriend going to like this kind of thing? Then there's heavy scrutiny, which is there's a salesperson, there's a contract, and these are the bigger purchases. And again, in the B2C world, business to consumer, that's like cars and houses and things like it's pretty complex, documents, all that stuff. Intense scrutiny is the highest category, and that's all like the heavy. It's the same as the heavy scrutiny, but you get married. It's a long relationship. You're building an airplane. It's Boeing building airplanes, or you're hiring someone for a service. Actually, I'm in an intense scrutiny area. I'm a revenue coach. I'm calling myself a revenue growth architect these days, but it's all basically the same thing. I help people grow companies, and that's a very intense collaborative relationship.
And it often takes a while to get the momentum going. It's a few
Yeah,
months to get the wheels generating, and then it's the optimization and tweak along. So your relationship would be at least a year, if not many years, right?
yeah, yeah. We just
So it's a
keep
marriage.
improving it. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I love the breakdown on that because you have to understand where your product fits in that scrutiny level, right? And I think
Everybody
that's
I
a
say that to, they know
yeah,
right away where they fit.
exactly. It's perfect mindset for like, okay, now how do I address when I'm marketing if you come from at the scrutiny level?
Yeah.
Brilliant,
And
brilliant,
do
brilliant.
things like you wouldn't do a newsletter for chewing gum, okay? But people do this, or you wouldn't treat a heavy or intense buying process as if it were a light scrutiny process, like, big balloons and banners and firecrackers and everything in or fireworks in your marketing. It's not a simple thing. It's a very complex, serious kind of purchase. And in the book,
Exactly.
I say, all right, here are the three steps that the light scrutiny thing goes through. These are the 7 steps for medium, and then these are like the 20 steps for heavy, and maybe 30 or 40 steps. And there's plenty of other people involved in that decision, that big decision. So you can't
Exactly.
market them the same. You have to know
Well,
where
and it
you're
goes
at.
along with the sales cycle too. If
Yeah.
you're putting, RFPs together and you're putting bids and you got to go in through this person and you got to showcase that one and that's a
Yeah.
heavier buying purchase decision, right?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
could be spending millions of dollars.
Yeah.
or having that long-term relationship with you, that they want to make sure it's the right one. You know, that typical story of, hey, you don't meet someone in the bar and say, let's get married, right?
Right.
You
Yeah.
shouldn't. You
Hi, my
shouldn't. It
name is
often
Joe. Will
doesn't
you marry
work,
me?
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You want the long dating cycle. You
Yeah.
want to get to know
Exactly.
them. You want to make sure you're doing your due diligence and all those great kind of things.
That's right.
Um, but yeah, that makes total sense when you're looking at the price point. For me, I have a longer price point or a more intensive piece, but then I also have a super low entry piece. And as I'm launching that one right now, I'm thinking to myself, well, yeah, that would be, the little piece over here, and it's a quicker buying decision with a little bit of scrutiny on it. So it's like between A and B. And so, but of course, when you brought it to my attention, I can now see it in a different viewpoint where before, I may not have seen it in that level. And I think that's the challenge that most business owners have because they can't see the forest through the trees. They're looking at their stuff,
Well,
their
they're thinking
thing,
like
their
a seller.
ideas,
No, they're thinking like a seller without
and
talking
not
to
the
the
side of
buyer.
the buyer.
Yeah. So your job is to make it easier for your customers to buy from. The subhead of my book. The book is Roadmap to Revenue, but the subhead is how to make it easy for your customers to buy.
That's fantastic.
So what
That's
we
a
try to
fantastic
do,
book idea.
yeah, and what we try to do is with our clients, as you mentioned, we've now set up this sales stopper service where we figure out where the friction is for the customer and then work with the company to eliminate those and just smooth out the whole buying process so it's easy for a person to go right through. And that's how you make more sales. And it could be anything. It could be a rude customer service person, or it could be, it's usually processes. I will say that. As I
Yeah.
did marketing and sales turnarounds for companies of all sizes, I did that for a decade. Uh, Normally, the people were okay, the product was sellable and decently made. Um, the policies of the company were only good if the CEO was not a jerk. You have to be a nice person to make good policies. Um, and I don't work with jerks. That's one of my big rules.
That's one of your value propositions,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And processes was part of it, and processes is where it always falls down. The reason Jeff Bezos is a million billionaire is because he started with a process. He built a company on an infrastructure. He didn't care what the product was. He built
Yeah, it
an
was textbooks
infrastructure.
originally.
Yeah, well, books, period. Yeah. And so the whole thing has been how to make it easier for people to buy. And nobody's even come close to the number of ways that he does that on Amazon.
And he has set a standard for today's buyers,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because we're in an economy now where we want it delivered on our doorstep in 2, 3 hours, right?
yeah,
So now if you're talking about your operations or your systems that you have in your business that match the buyer's ideal situation,
yeah,
you almost have to think about how you're delivering your product and service in the age of Amazon delivery.
yeah, absolutely. Walmart's trying to catch up, doing a pretty good job, I think.
Well, if
Um,
you've got deep pockets like both of those companies, you can get going like that.
yeah,
But all of
well,
us
it's,
little folks don't
yeah,
have that,
no.
or probably don't have that. But I mean, we need to think this way.
You can still figure it out. You can, I've
Exactly.
helped entrepreneurs with very, like the Etsy type of seller, but they all have to understand that they start by finding out what the customer really wants, and
Do they
then
need it
you build the
yesterday?
infrastructure. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
What's
exactly.
it, what's the expectations that you're setting, and is that acceptable from the buyer's point of view
Yeah, is that
when
what
you're
they want?
delivering the product or service to them,
Exactly.
which is amazing. Kristin, this is a wealth of information, and it really is like I normally don't have mindset people on my show because I'm more action, tactics, strategy, let's put it to work and go do it. But this is so important to think about how we're doing this, how we're delivering to our customers and getting buyers by taking this different viewpoint of
Hmm.
talking to them.
Well, listening to them. Yes.
Listening
Yes.
to them
Yeah.
exactly, and
Yeah.
asking the questions of why they bought, right? And
And
I
how.
truly
Mhm.
believe the real surprise factor is it's not what you think.
Right. Exactly. And you got to be open to that too. I mean, have to take
Exactly.
action on it.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So this was really, really enjoyable for me. And I know the audience is getting lots of juicy nuggets out of it.
Good.
But we can talk forever, but we do have to wrap this. So, Kristen, where can listeners find out more about you and Zhivago Partners?
So our site is zhivagopartners.com. You can Google me. I'm all over the place there because pages and pages because I've been out there in
A
the
couple years.
yeah,
Just a couple
yeah,
years.
for a long time been writing and teaching people how to think like a buyer instead of a seller. I've also written a guide to mindset driven marketing in the age of AI,
Hmm.
which is kind of hidden away, but it's zhivagopartners.com/mindset guide. So zhivagopartners.com/mindset guide. And also, that's a free download.
Good.
Spells this all out. Also, my book is on
Yes.
Amazon in a number of different formats.
Well, repeat the name of your book again because I thought that
It's
was really fantastic.
it's Roadmap to Revenue: How to Sell the Way Your Customers Want to Buy.
Wow, which is truly in the mind of today's buyers and their, I coined it Amazon, buying habits, right?
Yeah,
We have to change it. We have to make it so simple and easy for what they're used to in their normal day in life for them to be able to buy from us, whether
yeah,
maybe it's simple or credit card processing or, invoice
yeah,
delivery or,
yeah,
there's 1,000 different ways that we can take lessons from Amazon, and other companies and our buyers, right? And the way that they like to buy
yep,
and to make it easy for them to do that. So
yep.
this
Very
has
good.
been really, really helpful and valuable. So thank you.
Good. You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. All right, listeners, thanks for tuning in today. I hope you picked up some valuable insights and actionable ideas that can help you make your business more profitable. And I know looking at the way you sell from the buyer side and the way they buy is going to be a game changer this year going forward. And as we're just getting the year started in 2026, this is a perfect time for you to potentially revisit that and I like to have my clients take a little planning time each month or even each week to think about ways they can improve their business and processes. Maybe this week's time for you is how the buyers are buying from you, and take some of Kristin's ideas, and reach out to her for that. I know that will help you. All right, before you go, if you remember, and you're ready to bring in more of the right clients and keep more of the money you earn, go grab my free Profit Booster Growth Map. That's my AI and GPT that is enabling you very easily to answer a couple of questions that you should probably already know, and put those into there, and that GPT will give you the next 3 moves to grow your revenue and stop profit leaks fast. You can get it anytime. Super easy. Just go to profitbooster.biz and /growth map and get that free growth map. And don't forget to subscribe. You don't want to miss future shows. You can always find Profit with a Plan on any of your favorite podcast players. We're looking forward to my more profitable information and strategies on next week's show. And by the way, we're 7 years old these days. So yeah, there's lots of goodies in there. So until then, make your plans and profit with them. Thanks so very much, Kristin. I appreciate this.